All right, China has suffered a massive blow by the hands of the Indian troops in North Sikkim. At least 20 Chinese soldiers suffered massive injuries during a brawl at Nakula in Sikkim. The incident took place on the 22nd of Jan when Chinese troops tried to enter into the Indian side. They were then challenged by the Indian troops. India today has learned that the following challenge from Indian soldiers. Chinese are said to have indulged in a physical brawl, and since they tried to infiltrate, they ended up in a brawl with the Indian troops. Indian side showed stiff resistance, pushed them back. Several Chinese troops are said to have been injured. In fact, 20 soldiers, PLA soldiers, have been injured. They've suffered a bloody nose, broken bones as well. They've been pushed back by the Indian forces, all points along the Indian territory. The Indian forces have been maintaining a strict vigil despite extreme weather conditions. The visuals that you see here on your screen is of last year, where along the same border area in Sikkim, clashes took place. And according to our experts on ground, they say that the clashes that took place 2 days ago was of much more intensity. And at least 20 Chinese soldiers have been injured. About 4 to 5 soldiers on the Indian side have been injured. The situation at the clash area currently is stable but still tense. Here we're looking at visuals of last year that's come in. In fact, we have our experts joining us, Shiv Arur, to give us some clarity on that. But let me quickly go over to Rahul Srivastav for more clarity on this. We also have Brigadier Sandeep Thapar, our defense expert, for some clarity here. But let me cut across to Rahul. Rahul, the incident has taken place 2 days ago, and we believe it's much more intense in compared to the visuals that we see here on our screens, which is of last year. The clashes that took place at the Sikkim border, where status quo has been maintained. First of all, it's not even a friction point, as much as I heard our experts speak, Shiv, Gaurav, saying very clearly that these are international borders. It's decided upon by the two countries time immemorial. And despite that, while India maintains its stance, Chinese, even though on the other hand you're having core commander level talks, the 9th round of talks in Ladakh over the Ladakh standoff, here in Sikkim it appears that the Chinese troops are trying to very creepily sneak in, and they were quickly thwarted by the alert Indian soldiers, and we believe 20 soldiers from the Chinese side have been injured.
Nabila, this is a classic subterfuge and deceit that Chinese have indulged over the last several decades. Now, what top sources yesterday told me, confirmed to me that a brawl took place, a clash took place. And what we were told that it was a patrol party which was challenged by the Indian forces. They were trying to move into territories which are not held by China. And that is where the Indian side challenged them, and the Chinese indulged in a brawl. Luckily, there was no weapon which was fired, but the Indian side retaliated appropriately and suitably. In this, what sources are saying, 20 Chinese odd soldiers were injured. On the Indian side, 4 Indian bravehearts sustained injuries. Our colleague Shiv Arur has added that this incident happened 3 days back at Nakula. Now, Nakula, as Shiv has said, is a very stated border area. But Chinese have had such designs in this area. Perhaps they are shifting the theater of conflict all along the border with India. And that is why Indian defense forces, which were in a high state of preparedness, primarily despite what China has been pretending in terms of movement of troops or withdrawal of troops from the depth areas, but India has maintained that till Chinese do something at the front line, India will not say that these are cosmetic changes. And that is why it seems to have proved that barely 48 hours before the commander level talks, which lasted 15 hours, the Chinese were attempting to create a point of conflict with India in Nakula. And that is why the Indian Defense Establishment says that it's going to be a problematic spring and a difficult summer.
Right. Rahul, stay with us. Shiv Arur joining us as well. Shiv, we're looking at visuals from last year. Like you clearly said, the fight that happened, the brawl that took place 3 days ago was a lot more intense than what we see on our screens here. Now, if you can take us through the significance of Nakula and the Sikkim border, we believe that these are international borders. And what is the problem of the Chinese? Why are they trying to sneak up and sneak in? while on the other hand, there are core commander level talks that are taking place. The 9th round in Ladakh over the Ladakh standoff. Here, Chinese putting pressure on another border area.
Very good question. This is not the line of actual control. This is actually the international border between India and China-occupied Tibet that we're dealing with here. This is the Nakula area of North Sikkim where this has taken place. I want to bring in Brigadier Sandeep Thapar, who is an old friend and a very well-known military analyst who's actually served in Sikkim. He has served in many high-altitude areas, including on the border with China as well as the line of actual control. Brigadier Thapar, welcome. Your assessment, your view on this clash that has taken place. It is easy to, look at it as just an isolated incident, but given everything that's happening, how do you see it, sir?
Shiv, firstly, it's nice to be back with you again. Shiv, as you people have already said, these are settled borders. Even China has recognized them. Yes, at the local level, a little bit of line going along this or along that. Minor issues prevail, but broadly it is a settled border. Secondly, it is peak of winters. In such temperatures and such cold where snow is there, very little movement generally takes place because it's precarious. You could have slides. This is normally not an area where you have friction major part of the year. It is done in Arunachal. Some of it has happened in North Ladakh, Eastern Ladakh also. But here it has not happened, and it's come very close to a core commander level talks, which had happened yesterday, just a day or two prior. So there could be something to it. As details come out, at the moment, one can just make out that there has been a kind of a patrol clash. Their patrol probably tried to inadvertently or did it on purpose, crossed over, and our troops were alert and they intercepted them. As details come out, it will be a little more clear what is the aim. It could just be an inadvertent movement by the Chinese patrol, because otherwise I see no logic in opening a sector where everything is set.
Brigadier Thapar, what happens after a clash of this kind? You've been in this area, you've commanded troops, in areas like these. When a violent clash of this kind happens, what immediately happens after that? What are the priorities for the commanding officers? What would have happened on the ground after this?
See, the moment a clash happens, firstly, one tries to avoid a clash. You've got various drills to tell them that this is our area, banner drills and poster drills, and you show a banner that this is our area, you go back, you are not in your area. But if a clash does happen, then both sides attempt, the commanders at the local level, whoever the company commander tries to make sure that it doesn't escalate into anything more, probably shoving, pushing. Sometimes it does escalate into a fist fight, but you try and avoid that. You keep telling them this is our area, go back, so that you try and end it with as little violence. If it does deteriorate into a violent fist-cuff fights or more, then at the earliest, since we have a system of the ground-level commanders in touch with each other, immediately a flag meeting kind of a thing is communication is passed, and you get a meeting and you sit down together, discuss the issue and what has happened, why it happened, and how to avoid it in future. And you do reiterate, you do tell them that, listen, you guys were at mistake, or whichever side is at mistake, is the other side points out that this is our area, you shouldn't have come in. And it is generally decided, okay, we'll either it is between at that level itself, it is decided that yes, who was wrong, who was right, or if they still can't decide, then it is probably left for a personal meeting subsequently that we'll decide. We are not in agreement about the status of the border, but
right.
This should not have happened at Sikkim because everything is fairly well settled.
Yeah. That is the troubling part, Gaurav. The fact that it's happening in Sikkim is troubling. There have been issues with China in Doklam, We've seen provocations happening even in the Nakula area. But like Brigadier Thapar rightly says, this is a settled border. There's no dispute on this border. This is not the line of actual control. This is the actual border. So this, points to a possible thought process in within the Chinese army that it doesn't matter. As long as it is India, we will continue to provoke, no matter where it is.
Shiv, Sikkim is one area which is extremely crucial to India. This is where the Chinese can easily roll into the chicken's neck area as far as India is concerned, the Siliguri corridor. So whatever happens here raises hackles at every level. So nothing happens here which is inadvertent or by mistake or a patrol coming through, especially at the peak of winters. This is very well thought out. That's point one. Point two, Chinese are following a pattern here. Doklam, when they did at the Tri-Junction area, while they may have tried to do so in the Bhutanese territory, but it directly impinges on India's security. There is that crucial Torsa Nala, which is India's red line. The Chinese were told, you cross the Torsa Nala, it's an act of war. And that is where India had to take that aggressive action in 2017 to take out the batteries of their bulldozers, to pick up their equipment and bring that on the Indian side, because that's the only message the Chinese understood. After that, the Chinese started permanently building up in that area. So a track was built into a proper road. Temporary shelters were built into permanent shelters. So that area, while it always remained a threat, now is a very potent threat. Again, in Nakula, it may well be a settled border, but as far as the Chinese are concerned, they've been nibbling away at our territory for decades while we thought it was inadvertent. Nothing was inadvertent. Nothing was by mistake. So every little bit of no man's land between India and China at one point of time, and Brigadier Thapar would remember that well, that no man's land was Chinese territory. They kept moving forward. They kept inching forward. Not only did they then come to that disputed area, now they're coming into our area, claiming it is their area. So, this is how the Chinese keep moving forward. They're following a pattern. Before the talks that take place at the level of corps commanders, when they do something elsewhere, Shiv, they are mounting psychological pressure on India. And this summer, they intend intensifying their activities, whether it's in Arunachal Pradesh or Sikkim or Barahoti or Eastern Ladakh. All along, their pinpricks, their nibbles and their action will continue, because Doklam was a loss of face. The Kailash Hills, again, a massive loss of face for China, and that's something that wouldn't want to live with when they actually try to expand their area of influence, whether it's in Taiwan or South China Sea or East China Sea. They cannot be seen in the entire world as India stalling the advance of the Chinese.
Stalling the advance of the Chinese, a settled border, but there are no coincidences here. Everything is actually taking place by design. Rahul Srivastav, our National Affairs editor, who broke this story here on India Today, is with me. Okay, Rahul is not with us, but coming back to Brigadier Thapar on this. Brigadier Thapar, the talks that are taking place currently in Ladakh, like you mentioned correctly, this clash took place just a couple of days before, the talks took place in Ladakh. Now, I know the talks in Ladakh are specifically about what's happening in the friction points there, but during these talks, would there be any kind of mention or reference to what's happening in Sikkim, or these are airtight talks pertaining to what's happening on the ground in Ladakh?
Shiv, firstly, I would like to say that our old friend Gaurav is being a little alarmist when he says that he's thinking of this as salami slicing. Yes, I agree with him. This could be a kind of a psychological operation aimed at the talks or what is happening on the northern borders in Ladakh. Going back to the corps commander level talks, no. As you said, they are airtight compartments. The corps commander there is talking only of his sector. Both of them talk only of their sector, and anything happening elsewhere. And in any case, this is far removed. Sikkim and Ladakh are very far removed, and there are different commanders. So you would not have the knowledge of that area. You would not have the particular aspects that what have happened. The information would not be there. So I think the talks would have been restricted only. I'm sure the talks would have been restricted only to what is happening in Ladakh between those two corps commander level talks yesterday. And on the issue of talks, I've been saying this for long. I don't want to sound despondent, but I have a feeling that nothing much substantial is going to come out in these talks between the ground level commanders, even if it's at the corps commander level. This has to be raised higher. This has to move into the diplomatic realm because so far we've had 8 rounds, but nothing much has come out except the fact that both sides have agreed not to let it escalate into firing or total breakdown of the set down routes. So it has to move now into the domain of MEA or even the Prime Minister with the Premier. At that level, it has to move in.
Whether the diplomatic effort is going to yield anything at all remains to be seen. But like our experts are telling us, a cold winter is clearly going to be yielding into a hot spring and an even hotter summer. No end in sight, even though communication lines between the Indian and Chinese through the talks platform continues to take place. Gaurav, yesterday's talks were crucial because, they're happening for the first time since November last year. What are your sources telling you about the talks that happened in Ladakh? That is still very much the big focus as far as India-China dispute is concerned.
Oh, absolutely, Shiv. Because 15 hours of talks, several rounds of engagements with the Chinese. Yesterday was the 9th round of engagements. We'll still wait to see what emerges. The co-commander is briefing. He's briefed the army commander and army headquarters in Delhi. More details will be coming in as they're assessed, and then information will filter out. But from what sources have been telling India today, China remains adamant on its stance that India needs to vacate the Kailash ranges, the Gurung Hill, the Magar Hill, the Rizangla, Richenla heights that we are completely in control of, dominating the Chushul Moldo heights. It's a loss of face for China. But what's China doing already? Shiv, they're building an alternate axis where we will not dominate their road anymore. So, which gives you an indication that 1, they're here for the long haul. 2, they're building permanent defenses. 3, they're actually increasing their infrastructure in this entire area. And they wouldn't do that unless they realize that this is extremely important. So this isn't just the regular salami slicing that the Chinese were up to for decades. They have a bigger game plan in this area, as many experts argue, to protect the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which they feel is extremely vulnerable here. The counter pressure that people talk about, whether China and Pakistan together cut us off at Depsang and DBO, that again remains a big cause for concern as far as India is concerned, for the simple reason, Shiv, that that's one area where China and Pakistan can collude against India. Whether they do that or not, because a country like China, would it require Pakistan's help to deal with India, again would be a loss of face for President Xi Jinping if he wants to be seen as this big world power taking on America by 2050 or be the single most powerful country in the world by 2050. You don't need a country like Pakistan's help to achieve that aim. At the same time, they're being extremely aggressive in Taiwan, they're being extremely aggressive in East China Sea, and now they're being extremely aggressive not just in Ladakh but also in Sikkim. Just a petrol clash or something more severe. Look at also their actions that are taking place in Arunachal Pradesh. So there appears to be a bigger pattern. We need to join the dots and prepare for a hot summer.
Brigadier Thapar, what next now? At the troop level, at the unit level, at the corps level also, there are discussions happening between India and China. But, how do you see what the next steps are going to be? Is this going to settle into a permanent kind of line of control scenario between India and China, where there is going to be heavy militarization across all of these sectors as a result of this?
See, Shiv, one cannot state with due amount of certainty that this is what is going to happen, but it looks likely that this area, especially Ladakh area, in Sikkim, as it is, you have a deployment along the border. So is Arunachal Pradesh. Both sides are holding the posts. But at Ladakh, there was open spaces, no man's land, where your defenses were a little in depth. But as things stand, we are facing each other eyeball to eyeball. And as I see, it is likely to stay that way. In any case, for next 2-3 months is winters. In April, May, things, China is going to reveal its cards, its hands, what is likely to do. But as I see it, the Chinese troops are not going anywhere for another year or so till we actually sit down and talk and decide the future of the borders.
Stay with me. Lieutenant General Rameshwar Yadav is also with us on this. General, your assessment, your view, your reading of this current situation. You know, for 4 months now, the last time there was any kind of escalation was when bullets were fired in one of the Ladakh sectors between troops on both sides. But there was no physical brawl of any kind there. Now 4 months later, in January, you're seeing this very, very violent clash that's taken place in Sikkim.
You see, it is part of the bigger scheme. You see, China has been quiet till elections have taken place in US. They're waiting for the guard to change in US. That's the first point. Now, as per their assessment, what it appears, they think that the present administration is going to be comparatively softer towards China.
Yeah.
Though they have sent one aircraft carrier in the South China Sea. But as far as China is concerned, the major issue with them is their economic lifeline. And that goes through the Indian Ocean and China-Pak economic corridor. And India is one country which can interfere in both these. So therefore, India continues to be the priority political objective for China. So therefore, they're trying to carry out all kinds of coercive actions in order to suppress Indian political dispensation. So that is the basis, the core of this entire problem. And what is happening now is, now from eastern Ladakh, China is trying to increase their turf, thereby increasing pressure on India and engage India. And like you had said earlier, that they also have issue with the LAC. They want to redraw the LAC as per their convenience, and their convenience is see to it that our new road, which is coming right up to DBO, that is under surveillance, and it can be interfered with, because their main problem lies the interference in the CPEC, which starts from Xinjiang, which is close by. So this is how the overall scenario is being created. China is trying to increase the pressure, but the basic issue remains that they are looking at the economic expansion through Indian Ocean and CPEC, wherein India is the biggest stumbling block as far as China is concerned.
General Yadav, thank you very much.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.